Okay, everybody, welcome to the first edition of Field Hockey Canada's new webinar series, Ahead of the Game. Today, our host is going to be Hugh Purvis, the Men's National Program NextGEN Director. So welcome, Hugh. And my name is Kevin. I'll be helping out moderating and supporting today's session. So essentially how it's going to work is Hugh will launch into his presentation in just a few minutes here. And we're aiming for about an hour with some Q&A portions throughout, and then a bit more at the end as well. So since everyone's mics will be muted for the duration, we ask that you write your questions in as we go along. In the chat bar, you can post public questions, like if you want to post them in the main chat, or you can direct message chat in the side to myself. So what I'll do is I'll grab the questions as we go along, and I'll send them individually to Hugh, so he doesn't have to spend time looking at the question bar. Yeah, I mean, essentially, Hugh will take it away in a few minutes, or in a few seconds here, and we'll admit people as we go along. Again, there's three sort of distinct sections in Hugh's presentation today, so we'll feel free to write questions right in as we go along, and he can maybe answer a couple in the breaks between the sections. So yeah, in the pause between the three sections. So yeah, thank you so much for attending, and thanks for the great turnout and the registration. We really appreciate it. So Hugh, feel free to take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Thanks for the introduction. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. It's a pretty good turnout. We got 37 online now, which I'm really excited about. So as Kevin mentioned, there'll be a few points in which you can ask questions and just post them on the side, and I'll answer as best as possible. A little bit about me to start with. So I'm an Australian working in Canada for Field Hockey Canada. I spent 5 years as the high performance manager at Hockey South Australia. And in 2018 moved over to Canada to work as the NextGEN Director, the Men's NextGEN Director. I have a dual role and work with the men's national team as an analyst and also a technical coach. And so, yeah, that's my background. In terms of the title, what makes the best the best? I guess something for me was, I've got a lot of time at the moment to be reviewing video. And I thought it's a good opportunity to look at what are the best players in the world currently elite at, and what separates them from other players. So that's the title. If anyone was guessing, I think it left a little bit to the imagination, which is good. So I'm just going to start with a little bit of an introduction. And I think this slide is kind of powerful for me, and they're all recognizable names, I'm sure, for everyone. All world champions, all elite at their sport. And just the reason I put this here as a starting point is something I think we all forget as coaches, is that, we can create the best athlete in the world just through good practice and delivering good sessions and putting all the effort in the world. But I think the one thing that's unique about all of these guys and ladies would be work ethic, some sort of athletic ability that is above and beyond those of their peers. And so, this is an elite class of people. Unfortunately, when I search greatest of all time or GOAT, it doesn't come up with any field hockey players at this point in time. But let's hope that we see that change in the future. So I just wanted to highlight, all of these people have something in common, whether it be their work ethic, whether it be an innate athletic ability they were given, whether it be a tremendous IQ. And I just wanted to start with that point before we go into, what makes these field hockey players elite. And I just threw in some quotes. So, when you guys get the presentation and you're reviewing or you're having a look through, there's some amazing things about these people. Cristiano Ronaldo is known for his amazing training ethic and work ethic outside of the matches he plays. Steph Curry talks here about being uncomfortable and training above that of what's comfortable. Michael Jordan just talks about visioning being a champion, and he was able to live that through hard work. And there is a YouTube video later in this about Michael. Serena, all the hours spent grinding, and then LeBron, quote on him about the effort he puts in to understand and his IQ about scouting and performance on match day. So I just wanted to highlight that as we start. And then I think this is probably another really important one, which I hope most people have heard. And, again, I talk about what makes the world's best. I guess the right formula, and we start at the bottom, entering a village. It takes a village to create a champion is a very common theme. And, despite what we talk about as coaching staff, and despite how much we put into trying to give someone the best possible opportunity to be the world's best, it takes more than just one person. It takes many influences, whether it's family and friends, whether it's a broader support network of peers, sponsors, whatever else it may be. The organized sports structure and the pathway that's always athlete centered and looking after that person. Quality technical leadership through a pathway, facilities and access to training. These are all things that will play a part in someone being an elite athlete. And again, it's easy for me to analyze and share with you video of what the athletes we're going to analyze do well. But in reality, they've had a lot go right. And they've put in a lot of hours and a lot of effort to get to where they are. And so really, I'm just analyzing some of their technical, emotional intelligence, their IQ on the field. But I think it's always important we do understand the background behind their pathway. In terms of field hockey, we are always assessing, and we're a data-driven society these days, particularly in high-performance sport. We do need evidence, and we do need to be evidence-based when we're delivering feedback. So just in front, I've put a radar chart or a spider chart of maybe some of the things we're looking at in a field hockey assessment. And the athletes will talk about moving forward. They excel in many of these areas. And I will highlight some of their skills through the video, whether it's technical. And sorry, I'll go through the 6. It's technical skills, your receiving, ball carrying, passing, tactical, understanding of the game, IQ, reading play, risk v reward, that type of assessment, physiological, which is all athleticism, speed, agility, acceleration, strength, psychological. We spoke about it takes a village to create a champion, and that's coachability. It's someone educating them on emotional control. It's their mental prep, their resilience to adversity. Specialist skills, trapping, injecting, drag flicking, and then miscellaneous could be anything from their training performance, match performance. I think they're good things to separate. These players that I've highlighted, I have no idea how they train. I haven't coached these guys. Their training performance v match performance may be very separate. So they need to be assessed differently. Leadership, rate of improvement, experience. So I guess when we talk about the world's best, no doubt they are excelling in many of these areas. And, in this draft, you'd see that robustness is a 5, coachability of 5, and whatever. I would expect that the 3 we're reviewing would be very high on technical, would be very high in physiological, and would be very high in psychological, their IQ, and also tactical would be pretty high. So I think that's really important to note, and we'll come across some of those skills when we get to reviewing the athletes. So I guess in terms of going into the technical side, I chose to look at the 5 players that were nominated for Player of the Year in 2019. The 3 I've taken, I thought it would be really good, or at least good for everyone if I looked at a player in each position. And so the 3 players I've chosen to analyze and have video on and we'll discuss are Lucas Villa, who's an Argentinian forward, obviously a gold medalist at the last Olympic Games. Aaron Zalewski, who's a co-captain of the Kookaburras, nominated Player of the Year, won Pro League Player of the Year in 2019. And Arthur van Doren, who was World Player of the Year as a defender for Belgium and World Player of the Year in 2018. So they're the 3 players we're going to look at, and we'll start logically from the back, and we'll analyse some of Arthur van Doren. We'll go move to Aaron Zalewski and then to our forward of Lucas Villa. So Arthur Van Doren. What I've done is I've gone through and looked at what I think their technical, physiological, whatever skills look like, and what I consider to be their strengths. And this is from observing some footage and watching major tournaments. So I think just to break these down before we go into evidence of the clips, some of these are super basic, and some of these things are things that we train every single day on field. And again, what separates someone like an Arthur Van Doren from everyone else is execution in a game, quality and consistency of execution of these skills, and yet playing at the highest level of pressure. So ball carrying and use of his body in ball carrying. We'll talk about his ability to play under pressure, to carry at defense, and to use his body to protect the ball. Change of direction, something that's hugely underestimated. And there's a clip here that's really powerful about the ability to accelerate into space and de-accelerate really quickly to eliminate defenders and open passing channels or elimination channels. Passing skill set, really important. I think, everyone goes and practices these skills. But when we talk about a quality passing skill set, the things that I'm looking at are on the move. Are they at full speed? Are they under full pressure? How consistent are they in terms of accuracy and power? And so that seems very basic, but realistically, to do the basics under international quality competition and pressure is really difficult. And there's many small aspects to getting that right. Aerial, a distribution skill, power of sweep. It's funny, I wouldn't normally write this on a review, but Arthur Van Doren, you'll see some of his penetrating passes, his power and strength. I'm not a physiologist, but through rotation, it is unbelievable, and obviously allows him to create numerous opportunities in games. Field vision, I think this is one I'll talk about a lot in the next few clips. Ability to read play and manipulate, ability to read and manipulate a press, that features quite a bit, and composure under pressure. So they're the things I've sort of separated Arthur Van Doren from maybe his peers, and these are the things that I think create his ability to be an elite player. So we're going to go through some clips. I'll move through these, and I think it's just be conscious, and I hope this isn't the case, but there may be some lag on some of the videos. There is drawing, and I'll make sure to pause it and discuss the drawings so that everyone has time to interpret and read the video footage, rather than just playing it through and it being laggy and you missing key elements. So we'll go into, we'll go through and we'll watch, and I'm just going to break these down. And so Arthur Van Doren is the defender, this player who's on the ball now. I spoke about some of his key attributes, and as a defender, it's really important you're able to weigh up risk v reward. So you understand that you can create opportunity, but you also understand that those opportunities, if played at the wrong time, or if you're trying to create too much opportunity, obviously the risk becomes larger and there's opportunity you may concede. But I think Arthur understands through really good vision of the field how to create the best possible opportunities, and is relatively successful with a pretty high conversion rate. So I think here, and we're going to talk about his body shape, is his vision is never necessarily focused on what's happening within the 3 to 5 meter yard distance. He's always looking further down the field. And these black arrows are sort of symbolizing that while he's in the middle of executing a skill, his vision is still looking around the field, trying to, one, see what's happening here and if this person's been manipulated, but two, find the next pass that's available. And so while executing that, he's manipulated the press. And I think then you look at, again, really simple, but body shape, his ability to throw a sweep before and now move into an aerial shape. First one manipulated this player and created space for a passing channel. And the second one, by shaping up for this aerial, is meaning that these two players are dropping deeper and they're not putting as much pressure on him or coming towards him to pressure. And finally, just due to this basic movement, body shape, good vision, changing angles, and is, I guess, being comfortable under pressure, he's able to create and make a connection with a forward, and therefore with a powerful sweep through creating time on the ball, keeping his vision down the end of the field, is able to find penetrating passes and create perhaps opportunity that other defenders are unable to do. Next one, we look at Arthur, and again, it's about his vision. His ball carrying, I mentioned, was a strength before, and his sweep. I think if you look here, and this is one thing that I think as coaches we can often get lazy in coaching, is how often are we encouraging athletes to get their eyes up, looking in front of them? And again, in terms of IQ, recognition, and vision, his vision is looking everywhere around the circle at goal. And I think the thing that stands out to me is recognizing what's happening with these three. Players are shifting towards him. There's a gap between top of the circle and two players, and the ability to change angles, perhaps carry into pressure, and again, get eyes up once changed angle is really important. And again, talk about vision. As soon as he changes angle, eyes are up. He's got vision in front of him looking at the full circle. And I just look at all the cues that this player is able to read. We've got a lead, we've got someone moving wide, and we've got a player sitting on the back post. And if you looked at the piece before here, where I identified this space, by changing angles, he's now in a position to make that pass between. And if you look here, the connection with the player through the gap, playing off a left foot, results in a goal through power of sweep, ball carrying, good vision this whole time. And I think that's incredible, and it's not something that all athletes have. And that's what allows him to create these penetrating passes. This one's super simple. I won't talk too much, but I encourage all players to do this. 16-yard free hit. I think it's easy to get caught up in these players in front, and regardless of what level, you're always thinking, okay, we've got perceived pressure, there's players in front of us, there's a press being set up. Is that his vision, the minute he wins a free hit, is looking down the field, and he's prepping to find a dangerous or penetrating pass, or at least gain ground. And while you can't see the execution, you can see that from a full press situation, while the other team's setting up, he's able to penetrate a defense through long ball delivery and, again, a powerful sweep, and create a counter-attacking opportunity from what could have been a full pocket press against. And then this one here is for me, just a small, simple thing, and I haven't pointed out in all clips, but as a defender, I'm big on keeping the ball moving. And we'll talk more about why he's so comfortable doing this through his ball carrying skill set. But he's always mobile, and by a small shift at the defense, it's always keeping the defenders on their toes. And just here, moving the ball forward, and again, you look at where his vision is, he's very much aware if one of these players was to attack him. But again, he's not looking at the short player, he's aware that's an option. He's looking long. And again, when I talk about distribution quality and a skill set, the aerial is often used as a defensive outlet. And here it's an attacking opportunity. And I think that's really important. A lot of players train the aerial and use it as a last resort, or just throw the ball from a full press. But his ability to deliver it accurately and on pinpoint is a huge asset that complements his long ball vision. Okay, so from those, I think, just if I went back to the title, vision and a passing skill set that allows you to look long, they're the two things he does better, I think, than most other defenders. Always looking down the field, and the only reason he's comfortable to do so is because of the quality of passing skill set that Arthur has. And I would encourage, in terms of priorities, if we went back to that, when you're coaching, it's really important to have a set of priorities for an athlete to look at. Do you want to penetrate goal immediately? If so, like Arthur, your vision needs to be looking at goal. What penetrating opportunities are there? Then you're looking at the midfield, the short options. And then the final option for Arthur is always the bailout option. And you'll see some more of that in the clips coming up. The next one is manipulation of a press and ball retention under pressure. So again, the skills that you'll see here is ball carrying ability, passing skill set, and eliminations. And so awareness, if we look here, it's receive the ball. I think his ability to read the press and connect in, he understands that this is a center striker who's going to press, is aware that this is his space. And I should have mentioned this earlier, the three players we're analysing are a part of world-class teams. And so he's obviously aware of the structures that their team's going to play in here. Recognises space in front. And I think from his ball carrying ability, his IQ and his body positioning, he has no problem carrying at defenders to try and manipulate passing opportunities. And I would be saying that, as a defender here, a lot of defenders would run at these guys without an option or awareness of how they can manipulate. Arthur's seen and is aware of the inside passing channel, and by attacking here, if he draws this player in, can make that pass. When he attacks these two, he's either forcing them to come to him or drop and cover this pass here. And so he's collapsing the two pressing players to then create a passing opportunity and perhaps relieve pressure. And so if you look here, attach the player, understanding that he's always going to have the bailout option as a pass if under pressure. And same thing again, we talk about him reading play. I think here, let's talk about it later, but he shapes up and looks straight away to see what's happening with this player. From there, pauses, sees what's happening, understands that they're about to implement a full press, and his off-ball movement to then create the next passing option, really important. The other thing he recognises early, which I'm going to jump the queue, is this player stepping out to pressure this guy means that there is opportunity to attack space here. And it also means that this guy's duty is to follow the player or the defender to apply immediate pressure. And so from this, readjusts, understands that this player is going to track, and by attacking space, and again, these two defenders, has multiple options. Can either play left to the bailout option, or can roll back and create opportunity for the next centre back, time and space, get their vision up and find the next passing option. Okay, and I just spoke about that. And the manipulation, which Arthur understands very well, is everything he does will have an effect on what's happening around him. And even just by attacking this space, he's aware that this player is with him, will open up the centre-back's receiving time and space on ball, and will collapse the press to be more narrow because it looks like he's attacking through the central corridor. And last couple, this is a super simple one of what I'm trying to talk about with it. Oh, sorry guys. Is receiving back. And this is one I think we need to encourage and talk to defenders a lot about, is Arthur knows where he wants to make a pass. And by keeping his eyes up, and again, body shape, if you watch a small shift here, watching this player, knowing that's his passing option, he manipulates the press by body shape and then makes the pass he wants. And this is an example of the acceleration, de-acceleration, and ball carrying ability. He's very comfortable dribbling at pressure, and he is comfortable at that by, one, understanding how to manipulate, two, good ball carrying skills and good use of his body, and three, a great passing skill set. In this, he again reads where he wants to make a pass, understands how he can manipulate a press to create space through the midfield, shaping up. And I think this is something we underestimate, is acceleration and de-acceleration into space. By doing so, first of all, shaping his body, accelerating and de-accelerating, or accelerating into space is creating, and then de-accelerating as he's chased, he has created space in which he saw his initial passing option, and through good skills, technical skills, and a very good intelligence of the game, is able to create a passing opportunity to the other midfielder and create lots of time and space for that player. Just going to jump into a question. They're the footage, and that's sort of where I think Arthur sets himself aside from other players. I've got a question here that is, vision is key to success. Is it an innate skill or a learned skill? And how can we best teach vision? I think it's it's a combination of both, but I think it can be taught easily. Well, not easily. I think it's going to be a tedious process for a coach to teach, and it's tedious for an athlete to develop. That's because we're in our comfort zone when we're looking at the ball and we're carrying the ball with our eyes down. At training, I think we focus a lot on the execution of a pass, and what we see is, if the pass is off target, we immediately blame the fact that maybe it's a technical skill, or maybe they didn't have their eyes up long enough. But what we're not doing is, or we need to do more of to encourage athletes to pick up that skill, is consistently remind them. It might be reading verbal cues, whether it's holding up 2 or 3 fingers or 4 fingers as a player's dribbling before they make a pass. It might be setting someone up down the field with coloured cones, and a player has to get their eyes up, yell out a colour cone, and then make their pass. But I think what we have to do as coaches, and what has to be taught to athletes, is get out of their comfort zone in training, where they can have their head down and they can find passes cone to cone, or they know where the leads are going to be. Get out of those habits and create an environment where athletes have to learn the habit of keeping their eyes up and get in better ball control positions. So I think it can be taught, but naturally some players will have just developed comfortable over the ball and will develop that skill set on their own. And it might also be through multi-sport is really important. If you play a sport such as basketball, where it's a confined sport, or even indoor hockey, where it's very confined, naturally players in those sports are going to keep their eyes up to space around them a lot more than keep it narrow, because you have to find space in smaller areas. You have to react to pressure coming quicker. That's where the multi-sport element is super important for athletes, and particularly young kids as they grow and develop. All right. That's the question I got on Arthur, and I'm happy to share after this through those ideas around drills, and particularly put something written down for you when we share this. The next athlete is a midfielder, Aaron Zalewski. As I mentioned, he was World League Player of the or Pro League Player of the Year in 2019. It's funny, you look at Aaron Zalewski versus Van Doren. I think Van Doren's a much more flashy player. And maybe creates more scoring opportunities from a defensive position. But Aaron Zalewski is probably one of the most efficient players in the modern era. His passing skill set, receiving quality, consistent all times, always clean, always to the direction he wants, strength on ball. I think a big one that we don't train enough and get players focused on is keeping stick on ball when they're ball carrying. Creates strength and allows you to sort of shield the ball despite not being able to, obviously. Pass selection. I think that he has a really good skill set and understands when to use it, whether it's a lifted pass, whether it's push, sweep, aerial. Leadership, very important. He's obviously a co-captain. And when I talk about leadership in Aaron Zalewski's ability, it's not just his leadership as behaviours and being leadership in terms of behaviours, but also his vision, communication, setting up what's happening on the field and setting up play. Efficiency, time on ball. He probably he'd get a lot of touches, but wouldn't spend that much time on ball. And that's due to his understanding of the game and reading play. Composure under pressure. I talk about efficiency, doesn't turn the ball over, can receive in any sort of press, zonal, full press, under any sort of pressure, and is comfortable. And a part of that would be to do with his body positioning on receive and use of his footwork, ability to get his body around between defender and ball. So these are some of the things, and I'm going to mention he's not a flashy player, but is very, very good in his skill set. So we'll go into some footage of Aaron Zalewski. And I think this will talk a little bit more about the vision. And when I talk about Arthur's he's always got the field in front of him. And so he's always looking at passing options. With Aaron Zalewski as a midfielder, he's going to play back to goal a bit more. And so for those midfielders out there, this is something you can learn, and you maybe take a lot from soccer, is they look at offside. So their body positioning is always looking across the field. is in this, you'll see Aaron's movement and also his vision at all times. So Aaron through the midfield, vision always forward. And I think here a lot of midfielders get stuck with their back to goal, or they just run without getting their eyes up and developing connections. So here Aaron's playing against world number 1, Belgium. And you look at, this is why he's so comfortable. His skill set of just quality receives consistently and a good passing skill set, basic passing skill set. He's developing connections every time he releases the ball or receives the ball. And so here he's developed a connection with possibly Jake Wetton. Again, his eyes are always up the field. He's developed this connection here. He's aware of the space and has seen it. And to then create space and be comfortable receiving fades away from the defender. And I mentioned time on ball, quality receive, quality passing skills, and stick on ball allow him there to receive under pressure in a zonal press and outlet with ease. It's going to be a pretty similar clip in terms of what we're looking at here. Again, we look at Aaron Zalewski, we look at his body positioning, not back to goal, open, trying to find the next connection, and obviously looking to go forward where possible. And again, it's getting away from the players, keeping body open and receiving in motion and staying on ball. And I think this is one thing as well that creates the efficiency that everyone should be aware of. When we receive from here, I'm going to call it meerkatting. When we go down, or as Aaron goes down on the ball, he stays on the ball. And a lot of players here will pop up while they're scanning and getting their eyes up. And that's a part of us as coaches, coaching habits and being very conscious of, players have to stay on ball. They've got to stay strong. And that's going to create efficiency through quick receive and quick release. Again, same sort of thing, body open, vision up the field. And this is just something that I guess really like smart players will do as well. Is we spoke about Arthur manipulating a press. Here I'd be saying that Aaron is reading the press, where as the ball shifts, the Belgian players are shifting across the field to make sure they've got coverage on what is now ball side. Aaron, as a smart midfielder, has actually shifted against the grain or against the way of play to then sit between pressing players to create space for himself and create an easy outlet for the team. So open body does close off. But again, this little intelligent move of stepping away from where everyone else is moving allows him to create space and give himself time on ball to make a connection and find his next pass. Here again, same thing, edge of space, has a connection prior, and these are the small things that we have to look at to see how good someone's IQ is there. He's already checked in to find see this space, recognize this is a receiving space and develop the next connection. And so quality receiving, he's strong on ball and can ball carry. But you look at, regardless of the receive looking kind of clunky, he knew the space was there and there's no pressure to make a super clean receive. Get the ball to where your next pass is, and he's done that and efficiently move the ball into an attacking space. And so, again, really basic but quality skill set allows him to play against the ultimate defensive team, in my opinion. We just saw that clip. Sorry. If we go into the next one, we're just going to look at some passing skills. And again, I'm here in terms of Aaron Zalewski. I'm talking passing selection. There's nothing outrageous. He's not trying to hit winners all the time or, go on his reverse and create amazing highlight reel passes. But his passing skill set is very good in the fact that he understands how to play left foot passes, understands what I'll call the line of engagement or distance of engagement is, if a player's 5 meters away, can I pass through their left foot? Probably not. They've got a bit too much time to maybe make a receive, get their stick head low. If he carries at them, maybe they'll go low and his eyes are up, can then realize he needs to just pop the ball over their stick as a weighted pass. So when I talk about passing skill set, I'm talking a lot about his pass selection. He has the full range, but understands when and how to use these skills really well. So again, looking at his passing skills, super simple and efficient, has a connection, understands the press he's playing against, rolls on the ball, and you know, three touches, throws an aerial, they're in the attacking 25. Pretty simple, but again, very, very efficient finding outcomes. And then this here's sort of where I was talking about pass selection. When we talk about line of engagement or distance, right now for Aaron to play a pass into this space is probably unlikely. It's high risk and I'd say little reward in the fact that John Domen be able to make an intercept, or perhaps the Naya can get across on his low left hand. So Aaron understands, I guess, he's comfortable carrying into space, but also understands once he's manipulated a defender, what passing options he needs to play or what passing skill. And so as he comes up, moves away from this player to attack this player, and particularly on left foot. And right now, here, as soon as the player goes low, realizes has to play a little lifted ball, has kept his vision up at the player, and has selected the appropriate skill, which is a little weighted pass in the air. And again, I mean, you talk about quality of players around, passing to Daniel Bill, quality receiver, no issue playing that little bouncy pass to the next line. And you're going to see the same skill here. It's the same one, attacking the defender's left foot, you know, playing away from this player, not necessarily trying to be fancy and eliminate, but playing to space and a left foot. And again, same thing, recognizes, eyes go down, but recognizes that this player is close and a bouncy pass is unlikely to be intercepted. Maybe if he plays it flat, the guy makes it. If Brills is upright, he might get a touch on it, but by lifting it, makes it incredibly hard for any player within the 3 to 5 meter radius to make that tackle or intercept. And by doing so, well weighted, and I think that's something as well with pass control. And when I say good basic skill set, the weighting of passing is extremely important. And I think I'd encourage a lot of coaches and players coaches to encourage players to learn weighted passing. I think stick to stick is heavily prevalent in Canadian hockey, and perhaps weighting into space needs to be much better. I mean, that's it on Aaron, and I don't think I have any questions on Aaron Zalewski's skill. Again, it's an interesting one. You go from Arthur Van Doren, who's one of the most creative. You go to Aaron Zalewski, who's just so efficient, and that's what makes him world class. And now we're going to Lucas Villa, who's we do have a question that's come through. How do we create players confident on the ball? Most players have seen senior and junior teams not confident. I think, and this is where the world class, I'll talk about training environment after. We have to put players under pressure for them to be comfortable under pressure. And to be honest, if a player's in their comfort zone, then there's opportunity to develop. So what I would say is, as a coach, we need to create scenarios around how a player can get touches and lots of touches under pressure. And I've got plenty of drills I would use, receiving in a 4-on-1 and trying to get out of a box. That creates one, maybe they learn to receive, see which player's not prepped, and they can receive into that space and try and eliminate through a 3D skill to get out of the box. Maybe it's that they receive in the middle and they've got to use their body to protect it from players. But putting players under pressure at training is number one. Number two is when I said that these players are part of world-class teams, and this is something I see a lot here when I'm working with athletes, is so many people get focused on the actual turnover and the error that a player might make. And so when we give the ball to someone under pressure and they make a poor receive, they get tackled, often I think the natural instinct, and the natural instinct for most people, is to look at that player as, okay, they've had an error. They're the reason that we conceded a goal or a PC or a shot. We shouldn't have turned the ball over there. And I think it comes from a shift in mindset in teams to create comfortable players, is that as a coach, your job should be to set up a defensive structure that every time the ball is in a certain area of the field and we play a pass into a midfielder or we play to someone under pressure, is we should actually be focusing off ball as to what structures the team is setting up. And that way we're encouraging players to want the ball under pressure, with the understanding if they turn it over or make mistakes, that there's a structure set up to either win the ball back or protect our goal, for example. And I think that's really, really important. And that's maybe a mindset shift that will encourage players to experiment. But overall, I would say put your players under as much pressure as possible at training, encourage them to make mistakes at training, and often outnumber the attackers. When attackers are outnumbered, they're going to get comfortable on the ball because they can't just make a simple pass. Okay, we'll move on to Lucas Villa. Forward, Argentina, as I said, a gold medalist at the Olympics. In his early 30s, I believe, now, so perhaps moving towards the end of his career. I think in terms of forwards, that there's some things here that he was a very fancy player. He's got great elimination skills, but some of the things he does extremely well, again, I got to stop saying this, but awareness and IQ is really important. I shouldn't stop saying it, but I'm under the assumption that these three world-class players all have pretty good basic skills. So what does separate them from the rest of the international players is their understanding of the game and the X factor stuff. So I think the first three, if we looked at receiving, strength, protecting space, and strength on ball, he has an extremely low base in the way he plays. So by that, if anyone's heard of an athletic position, knees bent, uses his butt well, engages all his muscles and makes himself nice and wide. That's how he protects space and makes quality leads and makes quality receives in the circle. And that goes hand in hand with his physicality. Elimination skills. There's a couple of clips here from 2014 of, he is a great eliminator. I didn't have as many clips of recent of these, but he does have the ability to execute quality eliminations from further up the field and create individual scoring opportunities. But most of the footage I got from recent times were doing these really well. Strength of receiving, protecting space, strength on ball, and physicality. And then the last one is shot power. Some of these shots are he has a lot of space. And I think we have to recognize as coaches, not that it's poor defending, but to recognize he has created that space through protecting space, through quality receiving strength, and also through a good first touch into the space he wants to use. So we'll go through these clips. This first one, I think if you looked here, already looking downfield, we can connect with him. Sorry, did I just cut out? Sorry, should be back. This player is connecting in. This player turns, and Lucas Villa's leading pattern is extremely intelligent. Knowing that that's the space and wanting to protect it, Lucas draws the defender into the opposite side, and then quality of lead is through change of direction, change of speed, receiving into open space. And again, basic, good fundamentals allow him to make this receive in motion. So the cue led the opposite direction, drew the defender, and is making that cue to put the ball out in front. And again, well or good delivery allows him to receive in motion, get the ball in the air. Okay. So I think that's really important to recognize, is when I say world-class teams around them, it's got great players to deliver the ball well, but the intelligence and understanding of space and how to use it, and then the basic and fundamental receiving in motion at speed is extremely important. I'll just turn the sound off this. This one's about the intelligence. And I think as coaches, someone asked me about vision before. These are the cues that we as coaches have the role to teach our athletes. It's all I think we ask often a lot of our strikers, and perhaps we don't teach them how to play the striker position well enough. And I think this is a really good clip of how strikers need to learn to lead. So Lucas Villa is this player. if you look at where his eyes are, obviously you can see the whole field ahead of him. He's got his body open to goal, which is great if he receives here to go to goal. But he's looking at his defender. And throughout this clip, I want you to watch the defender's vision. It's looking back. Lucas out wide. Defender checks in again. Luca sees that his eyes are there. And then the next part after this is the most critical. By realizing he's tracking him infield and him making that move, he now has opportunity to develop connection with this player, but either accelerate infield, or once this player starts tracking, his next movement's super intelligent, which is to then, again, when this player goes back to the ball, is to fade away, use the space he's created through the fade lead, and then receive belly button to goal and attack space. So if we watch that whole clip, I think this is something that we don't teach players well enough, and really good strikers will read these cues. They'll play off the left foot. They'll understand what the defender's looking at when they make leads and time their leads really, really well. And again, if we talk about vision, a lot of strikers might get their head down here with this 3 meters of pressure. First instinct, looking at goal, eyes are up, carrying the ball baseline, eyes are up for a lot, and then that basic connection of where to play the ball. I guess when I spoke about his physicality and protecting space, being marked from behind, and in this receive, super simple, that's the space he wants to use. Recognize that there's space over here, and his body positioning and receive, not necessarily in that much motion, but in front, gets nice and strong, low, in athletic position, receives, recognizing this space, and his first touch is straight away into the space he wants to shoot from. He doesn't get a shot away here. I couldn't find clips that I wanted of him goal scoring from this position with one like touching the ball to space. But I think this is a good example of also his skill set. And he does here have a little 3D recognizing he can't get the shot away. And when we talk about physiology, he takes a bump here, low base, strong athletic position, able to stay up and remain balanced. So, I mean, from that, I think this clip in the middle, the second one we showed, is probably one of the, is really good for everyone to take on board about the cues we need to teach strikers, or the world's best strikers understand. I think there's some great Belgium strikers. There are clips of like Thomas Briels making multiple leads, reading lots of cues off the defender. And I think the one thing we have to be aware of or good strikers to be aware of, is a good defender will constantly check in. They won't ever get ball focused. They'll check in all the time. And then it's up to strikers then to develop sort of world-class strikers who then problem solve from there on. And then this one, physicality. I don't think we can underestimate. We talk a lot about flashy and the skills of a striker to eliminate, get goal shots away in one-on-ones. And this is sort of the target man striker or forward. Strong, athletic position, good receiver, understanding of space, two-touch shooting is really important. And that's what he does really well. So, there we go. And then these are two, and skill and strength on ball. We spoke about strength previously in terms of receiving. This clip here is his strength through contest. And here is just a little bit of recognition and some of his skill. So I think, again, comfortable. So 3-on-1, recognizes not 5 meters, uses intelligence. And from this position, attacks shifting the defender, and there's tons of space in behind, which he recognizes. And I think this is one thing when playing 3D skills, the awareness of space to play into at full speed is really important. 3D skills executed slowly allow the defender to turn and stay in the contest. 3D skills into space at speed eliminate the defender on the return, on their turn. And that's what is recognized really well here. Understanding that he can pop the ball into space behind. And then obviously there's more space, and really quick shot after this, gets the ball in and plays it back out in front, and is ready to shoot as soon as the space is available and he's away from a defender. And again, power of shot. I mean, the keeper had a chance to save that, and quality in terms of power, not necessarily accuracy. Again, skill set, attacking goal, understands that there's a goal, there's space, can attack goal, has seen that prior to the turnover. In terms of when I say getting out of comfort zone, I spoke about this before with our vision, also getting out of our comfort zone and elimination skills. Here is at speed, attacking goal, and a large drag to the left at speed. And then again, vision. From skill, vision is up and recognizes space. And this is about the speed of a shot. As soon as in the circle, pulling the trigger, and it's, quality, hard shot. And so the power of a shot makes a huge difference in execution of these skills. And then this last one is just his strength in a contest. And this can come down to left-hand strength. It can come down to general physical strength, but balance, stick head low, going through a forehand in a contest. And again, while it's not the quickest shot, recognizes that there is a lot of space here and is prepping early to get the shot away. Okay, doesn't rush it, recognizes that has time, and obviously just smashes it home, hits it as hard as possible, and it's pretty hard to be saving from there. So they're my clips of I guess the technical analysis of our players. I have a question here, which is back to Van Doren. We spoke about creating comfort under pressure. What about the best defender's ability to make tackles, which would make the opposition uncomfortable under pressure? Is Arthur more of an attacking and ball moving defender? He's a great sweeper. So we spoke about IQ. There was a study done on the Belgium team. I think it was at the World Cup, around where the percentage of ball is won. So they're world champions, world number one. And I think it was the majority of ball was won at the top of the defensive circle through intercepts. And so that is where I would say his strength is reading play, being a leader in defense or a general, setting up the chess pieces around and making quality intercepts. And there's some really good quotes of soccer players. Maybe it was Nardini, I'm not sure, but a quote about if I'm making a tackle, I haven't done my job. And those sorts of things should be really powerful about, to win the ball, you can do so much more than just win your one-on-one contest. You can set up a team and a structure that allows you to intercept, allows you to force errors through pressure. In saying that, he obviously, he is a great tackler. His left hand strength is really good. So when I say that, he is able to protect outside his frame on the left with a strong left hand and change his grip to more of a frying pan grip, if you know what I'm talking about. And then hand-eye allows intercepts, ability to go from there, play in front, again with the front or flat side of the stick facing a defender, and then to go to a left-hand low tackle. All very good skills and great transitions amongst the three. So while he is a very attacking defender, I would say one of his key skill sets is reading play and making intercepts as well, rather than just necessarily making tackles. I think that's all the questions I have here on players. If there's any more, I'll get sent them through and I'll answer them as we go. There's not a lot left. There's just a few things I wanted to talk about because I spoke at the start about, it takes a village to create a champion. I spoke about the greatest of all time, or some of them, about, we can do everything we can in a coaching environment. But at the end of the day, some of these athletes just have an innate work ethic. They've got incredible self-awareness. They've got incredible physiology, or, there's so many aspects that they may have that allow them to be better than others naturally. But as a coaching staff, I wanted to talk about mentality of training. And this was going to be a video of Michael Jordan, a great series out now that I'd encourage everyone to watch, The Last Dance. But it was a video of Michael Jordan talking about training and his teammates. And this is something we underestimate. And I love the questions about, we see a lot of players not comfortable, or Canadian players not comfortable under pressure. And I put that back to the training environment we create. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Serena Williams, you hear stories about those people in training. And And this one here spoke about Michael Jordan, and it was kind of like, oh, you think that match was tough? You should have seen Michael on Thursday's training. And it's videos and clips of Michael pushing his teammates to another level, challenging everything they do, whether it's physically, whether it's, and it's not necessarily the greatest way as a team to function, but always wanting to train at a higher level than what they're playing. And I think that's something we need to do as coaches to develop, is get players into the learning and growth zone. And so this diagram here talks about the comfort zone, which is where I mentioned vision. Players feel comfortable over the ball, carrying with their head down, seeing everything that's happening in the 3 meter space in front of them. The fear zone is getting up and they lack confidence to get eyes up and find the next pass, or don't want to get tackled, so they're scared of making errors. And then the learning zone and the growth zone is what we need to encourage as coaches. Make mistakes, get players out of a fear zone, get them into a learning zone, get them used to being uncomfortable is really what I believe a coach's role is, and how these players became the world's best. And in that, I'm just going to go through a couple of my training philosophies around, and this diagram here. There's a lot of sports science, and by no means am I a sports scientist or an amazing physiologist or a physiologist at all. You're going to have load monitoring at the top level. So you're going to have to look after your training intensity. With high intensity may come low quality. With high quality may come low intensity. And what I'm a big believer at is, if this is match day and this is your training week, if you never have a training intensity that is above the level of your expected match, then you're never going to put your athletes at a position where they're practicing skills under the same intensity, under the same fatigue, under the same pressure as you expect them to play on the weekend or any time they're playing. So I find it hard if coaches don't have a training philosophy around, we have to have trainings that are above the level we're going to play, as to how athletes can be comfortable in those scenarios. And I just want to challenge everyone's thoughts about that, because we always go from recovery, we go up to 1 in 10 session that may not be that good, or maybe our standards aren't as good. We then go to maybe a training before our match, which is low intensity, but maybe we just want to get touches. And I don't think we ever think about enough of, okay, our training, we need a recovery. We need to jump up to training intensity at 9 with the hope that our quality gets to 7 or 8, or we might make lots of errors and we might have a training quality of 5. But as long as we get our training intensity to above match day, and we can then really reassess the quality of our players, and not just expect players to perform at a level that they've never been to or they don't see regularly on the weekend. So just a couple of my philosophies around training. Challenge performance. I think that's challenging the intensity of ball speed physiologically, force mistakes on players. And what you're doing there is encouraging players to understand mistakes are okay, but every mistake that they make is a learning opportunity. And it's something as a coach you learn about your player. You might see lots more mistakes in certain areas, and we all get really happy when we see a training that everyone's making passes, everyone's making receives, everyone's not turning the ball over. But maybe that just means your training's not good enough. Your intensity isn't challenging your players, and you're not challenging their performance levels. So I think we need to prepare as coaches, or I prepare as a coach, to sometimes go out and witness a terrible training with the understanding it's above a comfort zone they're used to. Know your athletes. You can challenge your athletes to certain levels, but you also, if they're constantly challenged and there's a lack of motivation, you need to know what drives them, what engages them, and what do they need as an individual. And that's how you can challenge the performance. Without knowing your athletes, you might be setting something completely unachievable, and something that loses motivation and satisfaction from your playing group. Timely feedback. I just want to touch on that. Someone asked me about vision. If you as a coach aren't on the back of your players and constantly giving them feedback about it, if that's what they want to improve, if that's what's driving them, then you're not doing your job. As a coach, you're the eyes of the athlete. You're seeing what they're doing, and you're providing timely feedback. And if you're challenging them out of their comfort zone, they're going to go back to habits And those habits may be what you're trying to change. So if you're not giving regular feedback, they're not going to know they're not doing the right thing. They're not going to be able to improve. And you then may not make as many errors. And again, you want errors from players being out of their comfort zone and using that as a learning opportunity and a feedback opportunity. And then the last one is, once you've done the top three, is create accountability. Once you've got expectations, your athletes understand the performance quality, or it's okay to make mistakes if they're performing above what they're used to. The athletes know what they want and they know what they need. Then you can create accountability, and your athletes should be able to drive their own expectations of what a tough session, or how good their ball quality needs to be in terms of delivery and speed. What skills they struggled with at the weekend. Is it bouncy skill receiving, whatever you gave? Then they will challenge those things and be accountable for their own development in those areas. And that comes through leadership, awareness, reflection, opportunity, and then holding yourself accountable to, are you really giving it all when you're on the field to ensure that your athletes are getting the best possible training opportunities and performance opportunities? Just had a couple of questions come through. What age group do you think we should start pushing our athletes to become winners, promoting harder training intensity? I think age is a difficult one. I think it goes on what the focus of the environment they're in is. I think if I'm working with 8-year-olds and I'm working with 8-year-olds and I've got a team of let's say you're working with a team of 12-year-olds. If you're wanting to improve their skill set and it's a development focus, let's say that hand-eye, they struggle to receive bouncy balls, or they struggle to receive hard hit balls, or whatever it may be, is again, know your athlete group. You can drive the intensity there through fun engagement, and maybe it's I'm big on tennis balls. They bounce quicker, they're harder to control. Can you then create an element that for them is really hard to control, that's going to have some effect on just playing hockey? So again, it's not about, I would say 16 is where I'd be saying like high performance is we can start pushing athletes and really getting them to understand their own bodies, physically, mentally, whatever else. And we obviously have to be cautious of that. But you can always make a training specific to your age group and what challenge them. So I would just go back to number 2 of know your athletes. The winning side, it's a tough one. You had asked me a few years ago, and I would say there's nothing wrong with teaching people to win all the time. You ask now, and it's perhaps a changing environment. In all my environments, I will have small games where the athletes are expected to count the score. And that's a part of driving their own accountability and whatever else. And if it's not about competing, then I'll be saying, like, I don't care if you make mistakes, there's no score, but I have to see the quality of ball control and I'll just assess performance. So, yeah, so that's a tough one to ask. There's no right or wrong, and I certainly don't want to be held accountable for that because I'm not a psychological expert. But in my environment, I would be driving it all the time. In expert opinion, if there was a single thing that coaches on this call need to do so we can start producing world-class players, what would it be? One thing I would say, it would be a series of questions for yourself. As a coach, it would be, what is your role in a pathway? If it's development, what are the fundamental skills I need to develop in athletes? Hand-eye coordination, change of direction, balance, coordination, ball control, those things. If it's high performance, I would ask myself as a coach, what's my goal? Is it to develop a world-class player? And obviously it is here. Then I would say, is my training environment good enough? Am I open to errors? Am I encouraging athletes to get out of their comfort zone? Am I open and transparent in communication? So I would assess your own performance as to what you're trying to achieve, and maybe go through some of these 4 principles or philosophies. And then the key one there is being accountable. But yeah, I think there's no one model suits all around developing a world-class athlete. I think if you get the right training environment and you do your job as a coach to get it right, then I think that's all you can do. So me personally would go through these four. Am I creating a challenging performance environment? Do I know my athletes well enough to engage and encourage and develop them? Do I give enough feedback, and am I engaged enough with what's happening on the field? Am I the eyes of the athlete? And then am I holding everyone accountable, including myself? That's exactly what I would do. Can I explain athlete experimentation? Yeah. So with experimentation, it's understanding key principles, like cognitive learning. It's players will learn from mistakes, and they'll start assessing situations differently the more they're exposed to them. And this is where I was talking about setting up an off-ball structure. So in a game, I want to encourage let's say I want to develop an Arthur Van Doren. He's not 100% in his passing percentages. No, there's no way. I would encourage my central defender to, in games maybe that don't matter, or even under pressure, it depends again where they sit in the pathway, is I would encourage them, if they see gaps, to find the gap in the passing gap and to experiment with throwing passes through that channel occasionally. And then what I would then be doing is, okay, they've experimented with it. A few have come off, a few have been intercepted. The role of a coach is to be questioning, okay, why did this one work? Why didn't this one work? What did you see here to get that right? So that's one form of experimentation. The other might be just simply going outside the box, and it might be shooting techniques. It might be, just creating like two-touch shooting. Get the athletes to experiment with what feels natural, what feels unnatural, and put no guidelines around how they shoot, whatever else. It might be just throwing a ball at a striker, and they've got to hit the ball from where it lies. That's, again, encouraging experimentation around one technique. A good athlete there, or a good coach, will then question the learning from a bad shot versus a good shot. And so that's what I mean, is make mistakes, experiment with things that are happening on the field, have some reflection on it, and be challenged in terms of the feedback processes. But yeah, essentially when I say experiment, I mean make some mistakes to learn from them. And again, the difference between making mistakes will be obviously those that have experimented and have that cognitive learning opportunity. They're likely to be the ones that will perform under pressure, and therefore likely to be the ones selected. Obviously, those that make the same mistakes over and over again, there's only so much learning you can do until you get to a high performance environment. So, and you don't get selected for making too many errors. So that's what I mean by experimenting. Don't just follow a simple, this is my skills matrix, this is what I'm going to learn. Start experimenting outside the box and being like, okay, what happens if I throw the ball there and you've got to do something else? Like, experiment and learn from it. What connection, last question, just for a wrap up, I think it's been about an hour, is what connection do you try and make between an athlete's emotional intelligence and developing confidence? Huge connection. I think particularly your role as a coach is you have to know your athletes, as I've mentioned before. And so athletes that are less emotionally intelligent, and may struggle with confidence, you have to shift, or maybe you have to coddle them a little more after errors. Maybe athletes with really good emotional intelligence, you can be super strict on. If they make mistake over and over again, you can be cracking the whip or putting the hammer down around. It's not good enough anymore. But in terms of the emotional intelligence side, I think you've got to play a role in shifting mindset as a coach. And there's a good book I'm reading, and Graham Reed talks about it all the time. It's Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. And it talks about the role of being a judger versus being a learner. And from that, it's try and get them in the mindset where they're learning from everything and not judging everything they do. So someone with low emotional intelligence might always be judging themselves and maybe we should be adjusting them to start asking more questions about why things are happening, how they happened, what could I have done better, what else could I be doing in that situation. So yeah, it's I don't know if I quite answered that one well enough, but I make a huge connection around it, and that's the understanding of an athlete. Yeah, I mean, at some point in high performance, you can't coddle someone, but you certainly have to encourage and promote. And that's also the feedback thing I've got. If positive, reward and encourage. Someone with a low emotional intelligence may need a lot of encouragement, just something simple. It may be you want them to pass the ball more often because they're a great dribbler or whatever, but they lack some, that they haven't developed emotionally yet, and so they get frustrated. Not having the ball, for example, is just encouraging a pass and saying, well done, that's great. Doesn't matter about the outcome of it, just the fact they did it. And that creates some encouragement, it creates positivity, and maybe changes the way they're thinking. And then last one, looking at training this week, when is the best to train technical skills and tactics? Should it be more in high intensity days or high quality days? Yeah, good question. I would, me personally, like to structure trainings so that there's a technical focus. And so for me, I'm big on drill progressions. So for me, that the learning of, maybe it's acquiring a new skill. It might be the process of, just learning a skill, figuring out the technique, assessing errors, what needs to be improved. So it could be, something as simple as receiving in motion. I would then like to progress receiving in motion as the technical skill, which I'd use as a warm up into, then maybe it's perceived pressure. Maybe it's, they've got to read that cue like we spoke about of, okay, I've got to see a yellow cone over there before I receive, or a coloured cone, call it out, and then make that same receive. But I've got to take in other cues, which is going to challenge me cognitively. And then I might go into assessing that under a high quality game. In the same training, it goes from receiving without pressure, receiving with additional cues and, cognitive challenges, to then receiving under full pressure, playing a full game. So in a training week, I think if I was coaching a club Tuesday, Thursday, both sessions would look pretty similar, obviously with different focuses. If you're training at an international level, it's really about the cycle you're in. So it's really hard to get a 4-month cycle right if you're training every day. It would really depend on breaking that down to macro and micro cycles around, what's my goal here? Is it, 2 weeks of technical and 2 weeks of gameplay to then assess those skills and development? But I mean, as much as possible, unless a physiologist told me not to, I would aim to have my skills to start with, and then hammer those skills as a focus under high intensity training as much as possible. But yeah, obviously you've got to create the element where they have opportunity to practice it and learn it first. So yeah, I would have it pretty even across that week, with maybe a rest post game on the Sunday, and maybe a light training or a light training or a rest on the Friday pre-game. But I think Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday would look pretty high intensity, and maybe Thursday would be a rest, or Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. Again, it depends on what a physiologist told me. I would be lucky in that position. I think, well, that's it from me. I think it's been quite a while, and I hope my voice hasn't been too monotoned and too tedious for you all. I really like the questions, challenging. I hope I answered them well enough. I think I love coach engagement, and I, anyone that asks me any questions that doesn't think I answered it, or wants some more, or maybe I have some evidence to back up what I was saying, feel free to reach out to me. My email is up on the screen, hpurvis@fieldhockey.ca. But thank you very much for attending. Great turnout for our first session, and really, really happy to have you all engaged, and hope you look forward to the next one.
Thank you very much, Hugh. I thought that was awesome, really, really engaging. And thanks to everyone for joining and logging on. Hopefully you also found it entertaining and educational. Just for logistics, we'll be archiving the session. the video and posting it up in the next few days. And we'll also be sending out a feedback to the attendees. So if you have the time, maybe you could fill it out. It won't be too strenuous, but it just gives us some feedback for how we can continue to get better at running these sessions and keeping people engaged, especially in this sort of unique and challenging times that we're in. So I know next week on Thursday, we have the Women's NextGEN Director, Patrick Chachani. He'll be on. So that should be great as well. So we'll post the registration link out on social media. And thank you very much, everyone, for coming.